I've often said that collaboration is the sex of creativity, because, I mean, to work with a dozen other people who are talented in maybe specific fields, but all of you together are coming together to make this group art, which is what theater is. Why it's a group that you belong to, and of course, as the director, you're sort of the ringleader, perhaps, but you're really also a follower of what the actors are doing, what the composer is doing, what the visual artists are doing. So it's a very exciting project. But you sit together and you evaluate what you're getting, and that process of when you say, let's do more of that and less of that, is the film telling you how to make it. In other words, you as a group are recognized, like in Apocalypse. Did you ever see Apocalypse Now?
Of course.
There's a scene in Apocalypse Now where all the boys are on the boat and they're all stoned, and they're setting off smoke grenades on the boat, red ones and blue ones. Well, smoke grenades, the purpose of smoke grenades, why they're colored, is on land, if there's a safe place for the helicopter to come down, or an unsafe place, and don't land here, you set off a red smoke grenade. And if it's a safe place, it might be a blue, or if it's yellow, it's be careful. So smoke grenades are like a code, but on the boat, there's no purpose for a smoke grenade. They would have them because when they got on land, they might need them. But the boys were just sending off the smoke grenades in the wind, and because they were stoned, and it was beautiful. So we all saw that in the dailies, and we said, let's do more of that. Let's do more of that. And little by little, Apocalypse Now started to become more surreal.
Yeah.
And that's how the movie is leading you. And in fact, when I got to the end of Apocalypse Now, I had no idea how to end it, because it had become so surreal that the ending, which was a typical big battle scene ending, was no longer appropriate. And Brando, who was such a smart guy, a brilliant man, said to me, "Oh, you've painted yourself in a corner, haven't you?" He realized that I had taken the film so far off into the surreal that a normal ending wouldn't work. Well, the same thing happened with Megalopolis. As we looked at it together, we collaborators, and there was a lot of weird stuff I do just to get going, to sort of, you do the first few takes and you might do some unusual things to sort of spur everyone's creativity. And then the later takes get more and more normal. Well, we started saying we all liked the early takes, which were the weirder ones. Said, well, let's do more of that. And it's that let's do more of that and let's do less of that starts to determine how the movie gets made.
Well, let's talk about the oration real fast. I have a chunk of it here. When, O Catiline, do you mean to cease abusing our patience? How long is that madness of yours still to mock us? When is there an end of that unbridled audacity of yours, swaggering about as it does now? Shame on the age and its principles. It's just so amazing. Whether it was fully deserved or not, you can't argue with the brilliance of Cicero.
No, and it was that speech that was my hook. I said, can you imagine being in New York and having Mayor Koch saying that to Robert Moses?
Sure. Yeah.
That was in a nutshell. Sometimes you make a movie because of a sentence that you hear. In Apocalypse Now, the sentence that made me make that whole movie, and pardon my bad language, is I read a quote where a general or someone says, "We teach the boys to drop fire on people, but won't let them write the word fuck on their airplanes because it's immoral." I said, that's Apocalypse Now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just one sentence. And so this Catiline oration, which was in Latin, and every schoolboy in America, every schoolboy knows that. I said, what if I could do that? And that led to the whole movie.
Yeah, it is kind of amazing. I've been talking about this, whether or not you actually needed to learn Latin or Greek these days. The magic was the way they taught it for so many hundreds of years was that you had to repeat these magnificent sentences and epigrams and ideas that were kind of seeping in
by rote, over and over.
But like when I learned Spanish in high school, it was like, where do you want to go to lunch? Where do you live? What are your parents' names?
Where is the post office?
Yeah. Yeah, ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? You're not learning the greatest turns of phrase ever coined by human beings. And I wonder if that's why languages are so uninteresting to most school kids.
Well, the schoolboys in our founding of our nation were reading Caesar, the Gallic Wars, the whole thing.
Yeah.
They knew it by heart.
Yeah, Washington was the only founder who hadn't read the classics in Greek or Latin. He was considered not as smart because he only read them in English. Only in English.
Right. And Jefferson, on the contrary.
Yes.
But Jefferson was not a Stoic. Jefferson was an Epicurean.
Mm-hmm. Yes.